other investment professional.
Welcome to the Bullington Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullington. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullington.
Well, welcome back. Actually, I was told last week that I need to back off from the microphone because everybody could hear me breathing. Like, wow, those people are listening really closely. You could actually pick that up on an AM station. That's amazing. So anyway, I'm back from I'm off of the microphone. Hopefully, we don't have that problem again today. But as the guy said, this is Bill Bullington here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. And you can find a copy of this show on my website. It's bullingtoncapital.com. You can also get it on, I think it's iHeart, and it's carried at iTunes. So if you hear something that you missed, feel free to go there and pick it up, or give us a call in the office, 330-664-0700. Or you can email me, bill@bullingtoncapital.com, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as humanly possible. Sometimes that's pretty easy, sometimes not so much. But anyway, we're got a lot of good things to talk about this week. I've been looking at the stock market over the past few months, actually over the past 32 years. I can't believe I've been in this business that long. But it's interesting, very interesting. I'm looking around and I see technology, the speed at which technology has been introduced and has gone mainstream has really been at an accelerated rate because of the pandemic. So when people look at the pandemic as a bad thing, it's had a lot of really negative things to it, but it's also had some positive stuff. And the positive things, are companies that are out there. There are a lot of industries that are benefiting tremendously from this, and are going to continue to benefit going forward, because we have to stay prepared for these pandemics and the variations on the COVID viruses that come down the road. I think that's interesting from a financial standpoint. It's actually pretty good. When people say it's different this time, normally when they say it's different this time, it's because the market's been going way up and everybody wants to get in, and they all think that it's going to continue to go way up, and then it doesn't. But at this stage of the game, with interest rates being as low as they are now, it being very, very difficult to raise interest rates, the government's got all that debt on there that would basically really have a cooling effect on the economy. I'm pretty sure they don't want that to happen. So it's a quandary. And actually, when people say, it's different this time, it really is different this time. It's never been this way before. Interest rates have never been this low when valuations have been quite this high. Are valuations on stocks really overvalued? Not that much. Not really. But it could be you could have a situation where stocks go sideways. And by the way, they're not just going to go sideways, they're going to go up and down. They never move in a straight line. They're going to fluctuate a lot, and 5-6 years from now, you may not see much of a profit. That's a problem if you're close to retirement. If you're not close to retirement, if you're below the age of 45, who cares? Keep investing in stocks. Do a 70-30 split. Be a little bit on the safe side. 70% stocks, 30%. If you're very wealthy and you don't need a whole lot of money right away, or spending 3 or 4% of your money each year is not going to really make a big impact on your portfolio, even if you don't make any money, then obviously you want to be invested mostly in stocks. If you're like an awful lot of people who are getting close to retirement, you may want to start thinking about some things other than just stocks. We've been talking a lot about fixed indexed annuities, and my clients that know me over the years are really surprised, and actually several of them, we're having conversations. They're going, "Hey, did you ever think that you would be using these products?" And my answer was no, I did not. I really did not. By the way, these types of products are relatively new. An indexed annuity has been around for a long time. The fixed indexed annuity is a relatively new animal relative to the indexed annuities. They've been around a lot longer than that. So the fixed index is an annuity that has a fixed portion that basically the insurance company is going to stand behind and they're going to guarantee. It's generally an income or a potential income. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But it's generally an income, and that's where the term fixed comes from. So when you're looking at CD rates, I just went to check one of the largest CD brokerage firms on the planet. Okay, and a 5-year CD is paying 0.95%. That's a 5-year CD. The 2-year CD is paying 0.2%. Woohoo! 0.2. So on $100,000, that's $200. On $10,000, that's $20. $20. Okay, so, and by the way, that's a 2-year CD. I remember just 3 or 4 years ago buying them at 3.5%. I'm not sure we're going to see that anytime real soon. I don't think CD rates are coming back really soon. So I think if you need to generate income from your investments and you're afraid of putting the money in stocks and getting $20 off of $10,000 doesn't float your boat, well, you have another option, and that options are the fixed indexed annuities. And I've been talking about a very specific one, product from Nationwide. If you'd like to see what it might be for you, you can always email me. I'll email a link back to you. You can put your age in, and it'll calculate the income that you could get over your life expectancy. So let's talk about a little bit about how that works. So let's say I purchased one of these, and I don't need the money right away, but I'd like to know for sure, at least as far as I can know, that somebody's going to stand behind that guarantee. In this case, it's going to be Nationwide's going to guarantee that they're going to give me an income a certain amount of time from now. So I can go to their website, look up this tool, and say, okay, when I get to that age, I'm going to take that income. And I just, as an example, I put somebody who was 62 that wanted to take the income next year, and they had $100,000. Okay. So somebody with $100,000 next year would be guaranteed $5,450 a year for the rest of their life. Now, if the index part of it, if the investment part of it were to grow really fast, and the value of the investments actually got high enough, that income has a chance of going higher. I'm going to tell you because that rate is so high that it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely to happen. That's my personal opinion. I think it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely that you would take $100,000, be able to guarantee $5,450 next year for the rest of somebody's life, somebody who's 62 today and 63 next year. I just don't think that is going to be an easy thing to do, especially when you consider that the insurance company still has the expenses. They have to pay us. They have to pay themselves. So the $5,450 is net of fees. So when the fees come out, that comes out of the investment. And I know this is probably very boring for a lot of people. Just here's what you need to take away from this. It's a fixed income guarantee. It's going to be $5,450. Remember, this is somebody who was 62, going to be 63 next year, and they invested $100,000. Okay, and all this, by the way, over time will change. So if you listen to this program 9 years from now, there's a pretty good chance that rate is not the same. The reason I'm saying 9 years from now is I had somebody come into my office, and please don't get mad. I just thought it was kind of funny. Guy brings an ad about a bond interest rate from an ad, and I looked at the date on the ad. It was 9 years old. He brought an ad that was 9 years old that he'd cut out in the. He had to carry that ad around for 9 years, and he brings it in, and it's okay. I don't know where he got it, but he wanted that interest rate. So interest rates change. I mean, they're changing constantly, and this one's going to change. This is what somebody would get today, and today's date's the 25th of March. I'm pre-recording again, and 25th of March 2021. See, when I timestamp that now by announcing that date, then when people go, well, you said, and well, yeah, that was because that's what it was on that particular date. Just like I'd said earlier in the program that it was maybe 3 years ago, we got CDs that were paying 3.5%. Those were short-term CDs, like 1 year CDs, less than 5 years. And now we're looking at CDs at 5 years that are paying 0.95. A 1 year CD pays 0.1%. Holy cow. That blows my mind. It just really blows my mind. So anyway, everything is relative to the time period that you're talking about it in. And that always fascinated me, that when people come in and have information, and I look at it and I go, wow, that information is really old. And things have changed a lot. Sometimes they've changed for the better. So, don't stop trying to do your research. It's just be careful. Look at the dates on the newspapers or magazine articles that you're reading when you're trying to help yourself out learning more about investing. And anyway, so I thought this was a pretty good option given today's environment. Is that going to change? I know there are an awful lot. I get this question probably 3 to 4 times a week. Well, when do you think interest rates are going higher? I don't know. When do you think they're going higher? I think they might start raising them next year. Really? What makes you think that? I don't know. I just think they might go up next year. You mean because you need the money that it might go up? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, see, financial markets don't care about you or me and what we think and what our needs are. They do what they are going to do. They have their own minds. And oftentimes they refuse to bend over and do exactly what we want them to do. In fact, they almost never do in my case. So you have to learn how to deal with what is instead of the way you'd like it to be. And this is what is. You got CD rates less than 1% on anything less than 10 years. Is that crazy? Yeah. Is it going to change soon? Probably not. Why not? Well, because there's this thing called a national debt. You may have heard of it. It's very large. If you owed trillions of dollars and you got to pick your own interest rate, what would you do? If you owed 30 trillion, I don't even know where it is now. It's got to be somewhere around 30 trillion or more. So let's just say it's 30 trillion. $30 trillion, and you raise it. By the way, a trillion is 1,000 billion. 1,000 billion. A trillion is 1,000 billion. So 1% of a trillion is $10 billion. So if you raise interest rates, and it wouldn't happen exactly that way, I understand, all you econ professors, hold your britches. I understand it doesn't work that way exactly, but eventually, if you started raising interest rates for every 1% that rates went up by, that would effectively increase the budget a lot. Like a lot. So the chances of that happening, I think, are pretty remote. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe they are going to start raising interest rates. Maybe they'll raise them 4 or 5%, and then the interest expense will be the single largest budget item for the federal government. They'll be paying more than that than they pay on Medicare, which is the largest item now. They'll be spending nearly twice the amount that they'd be spending on the entire military. And by the way, they're doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. Really? You really think they're going to do that? I mean, I'm thinking that some of these guys would like to get reelected. and you couldn't get $5 billion for a wall. $5 billion. That was it. And you're going to go up to $500 billion or more by raising interest rates back to 5 or 6%. I just can't imagine that happening. I mean, maybe it will. I've seen a lot of other things that shouldn't have happened too. But you can bet you'll get a whole new Congress, you'll get a whole new Senate, and you'll have a whole new president. So if that happens, and everybody's going to badmouth all those guys for raising interest rates so high and causing the government to have to raise taxes, force the economy into a recession, just like they did in the early 1980s. And I just don't know that our government, the people running the government, have the courage to stand up and start raising interest rates like that, because it makes it more expensive to buy a house or a car. It makes it more expensive to pay off those credit card bills. Anybody that's borrowing money has to pay more. And when you have to pay more to debt, you buy fewer clothing items. You buy less food, or you try to buy cheaper food. You cut back on housing expenses. Everything cuts back. So I'm just not sure that our government has the ability or has the willpower to raise interest rates, even if it's the right thing to do. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll just sacrifice themselves and go ahead and raise interest rates so that the 65 and over population, the fastest growing portion of the population, can get some more interest on their CDs. That would be nice. I just can't imagine that that's going to happen. I don't know. So given that thought process, actually, I'm going to have to hold my thoughts there because I hear the music. That means I got a commercial break coming up. You're listening to Bill Bullington right here on 1420. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
I was walking the wayside, lost on a lonely road.
Redirect.com.
I'd be horrified if I looked up and I saw myself and this is my help. I'm just kidding. Yeah, here we go. Just kidding. So anyway, we're talking a little bit about the fixed index annuities that I think they make a lot of sense for a big portion of a lot of people's portfolio, given the situation that we're in today. Now, if we had 5 or 6% CD rates, I wouldn't be talking about them at all. If I thought CDs were going to get back to 5 or 6% anytime soon, I wouldn't be talking about them at all. But that is a fixed income in your portfolio is going to be a big drag, a huge drag. And I think this is a really good option, but it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody. If I'm 40 years old, I'm not really worried about this. I'm actually going to stick with the stock investments because stocks over that length of time period, from time period that somebody's 40 to they're in their 60s, you got time. If you're in your mid-50s, I'm probably looking at this as an option. If I'm in my 40s and I'm afraid of the stock market, a lot of 40-year-olds are. They read too much. They hear too much of the negative media, people that are there to sell them something and try to scare them into buying it. I'm not a big fan of that. But I think that stocks are fine. I think the valuations are fine. If you've got 20 years or longer, I think you're great. You're good to go. 15 years or longer, I think you're good to go. 10 years, I don't know. I really don't know. I've lived through more than one period in time where it was more than 10 years where the stock market returns were negative. Not interested in doing that again, but if it happens, it happens. But that's one of the things that you can prepare for. So if you're in your 40s and you're worried about that, there's another type of annuity product. I can't believe how much I've been talking about annuities over the past few years. I went for, I don't know, probably 15 years never mentioning them because they weren't relevant. Now they are. So this one is that's called an investment only. You don't get charged a sales charge on the way in. You don't have to hold it for any length of time period. You can take the money out. If you've made any gains, you'll have to pay taxes on that if you take it out, just like you would actually normal mutual fund. You pay taxes on every year anyway, capital gains and dividends, if it's been paying them. But this one, if you don't take it out, you don't pay. If you do try to take it out, you're going to pay taxes on the gain, plus there's a 10% penalty tax on that gain because you're not supposed to take it out till you're 59 and a half, because these are geared to encourage people to put more money away for retirement. That's what they were set up for, to encourage more people to put more money away for retirement. Now, if you're a young person, or even if you're an older person, there is a rider that you can add to this. What's a rider? A rider is an item, a special item that you can have added to an annuity. It comes at a cost, and you get some sort of a benefit for that. And there are all different types of riders, but this one particular rider, it guarantees a 4% income on an individual, 3.75 for a couple. So let's say you had $1 million. You could take out $40,000 a year from that $1 million. If you wanted your wife or your spouse, your husband, to be able to continue taking out, well, you're going to get $37,500 because they're insuring both of you. So, and they'll guarantee that for as long as you live, even if the money ran completely out. So even if it ran completely out, they would still pay that. That's pretty good, right? Especially when you're looking at a 0.9% CD. So on $1 million, that's $9,000. Let me say that again. On $1 million, a 0.9% CD is $9,000. So, and you're probably thinking, well, that other one you were talking about was paying a whole lot more than that. Yes, it is, but it's fixed. See, here's where this one gets different. They're going to start off, if you're an individual, they're going to guarantee $40,000 a year in income no matter what happens to the investments. Okay? So you get a $40,000 no matter what happens to the investment instead of $9,000. That's the first benefit. The second benefit is they're allowing you to invest up to 100% of that portfolio in any one of 350 stock funds inside that annuity. And it's investment-only annuity, by the way. Doesn't have, if you added the rider, it's a 0.5%. The total expense ratio on this, by the way, is incredibly small. If you know what that means, and you want to find out more about it, hit me up. Send me an email. For the rest of you guys, it's expense ratios are basically the expenses that the fund companies charge to manage the mutual funds. These are institutional funds, so they're typically less than they would be if you were to buy them directly. There's a mortality and expense charge on annuities. That's what the insurance company charges to manage it and handle their administrative expenses. This one's one of the lowest in the country, in the world for that matter. So that's why you don't have any sales charge going in or out, because they're not charging a whole lot. So if they were charging a lot or paying a whole lot, the penalty would be a lot. You'd have a penalty and some sort of a penalty. So anyway, since there's no penalty, they're not charging a lot. And again, that 0.5% rider, that's something you add. You do not have to have that. That's not something you can take that 0.5% off if you don't think the 4% is a good idea. But let me explain a little bit how that works. So let's say I started with $1 million again. And next year, by the way, the reason I'm using $1 million is because I'm getting older and it's easier for me to do the math. $1 million is really easy. I've got it all memorized. What's 1% of $1 million? $10,000. What's 0.5% of $1 million? $5,000. So I've got it all memorized. This makes it a little easier. So if I have $1 million and I get 4%, that's $40,000. I'm going to get $40,000. That's the worst I can do. Now, if the stocks go up, let's say I invested November 1st of the year, whatever year it is. They're going to take a look at that the next year if the $1 million is $1.1 million, they're going to guarantee 4% on $1.1 million. If I had taken out the full 4% plus all the expenses, okay, and the next year, the $1 million, I took out $40,000, and let's say it's, I don't know, $1,100,000. Well, now I'm going to get $44,000. I'm going to get 4% of the gain plus 4% of the original principal. Woohoo! That's pretty cool. And see, the thing is, I don't think that's very likely for something like the other product. It's going to pay more right off the get-go, but it doesn't have the ability to go up. This one does. That's the difference. See, because there's this other thing that you may have heard of somewhere in your lifetime. It's called inflation. And when you retire, your money shouldn't retire with you. Your money needs to keep working. And this is the working annuity. It's one that's got the better opportunity to go higher. Since they're giving you that opportunity to go higher, it starts off paying a little bit less. That's the trade-off. You pay off a little bit less, the payout's a little bit less, but it has the opportunity to go higher. And it will never go lower, even if your account ran all the way out of money. They would still keep paying you that $40,000. Now, which one of these is right for you? I think most people could use both of them. The one you've got the higher fixed income. This one you've got a lower fixed income, but the chance to go higher, the chance to go up. The other one doesn't have that. So, which one's right? There is no one right answer. That's the one thing that kills me about all these ads. The single stock portfolio. Yeah, come on. Yeah, that's not investing, by the way. That's gambling. Investors don't put all their money in one stock. They just don't. The risk is too high. So you've got these two products that I think actually, realistically, this is all you would need to use. When you look at the funds that you have access to inside the investment-only annuity, the fact that you can switch them around and you don't get a 1099, how cool is that? By the way, neither one of them, unless you're taking money out, will give you a 1099. They're tax-deferred. That's a pretty good deal. If you're paying a whole lot of taxes, let's say you're paying taxes on your Social Security. You may be able to reduce or even eliminate that Social Security tax, because instead of having the investments paying dividends and capital gains that you're not even spending and paying taxes on anyway, you get to avoid that. You get to defer all that. So there are lots of things that you can do with these things. They're really good products. I really like it. It's been a long time. In fact, my history with this is over time, there have been some really great products that came out, and then products got really expensive for a long time. The internal expenses got really high, so I stopped using them. And now I'm looking back and then like, hey, this is cool. These are actually better than they were when they were better before, when I used to use them. So it's fascinating. As they say, or as I say, nothing is as constant as change. That's the biggest constant you can rely on, is change. However things are today, they will be different 5 years from now. So when they say, well, it's different this time, they're actually right. It is different this time. But in fact, it's always different. It never repeats exactly the same way. Where are we today as an economy? The great news about this economy is that it's growing. And the even greater news is you should see some of the technological breakthroughs that have come through and been sped up because of this process. I know if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you remember when I talked about the Dick Tracy watches, which still aren't quite all the way there, but that was 1996, by the way. And we were talking about the watches, the Apple Watch. How long did that take to come out? I don't know, 14 years, 13 years, somewhere around there. Anyway, that's one of the frustrating parts about reading and staying up with things. You read about all this cool stuff, and then it doesn't come for 10 years. It's 10 years before anybody deploys it. By the way, the inventor of the fax machine probably died before they actually started using that, because the original patent was issued in 1937. You know when the first cellular phone was invented? 1897. 1897. And it was a farmer from Kentucky. And he sold his farm to go exhibit this at the France World Fair in 1900. Everybody thought it was a hoax. Nobody believed that it was true, that person that they could see on the other side of the lake that was talking to them with their back turned so he couldn't tell what they thought it was a trick. So nobody bought this thing, and he went back to Kentucky and died a hermit in a cave. Just a little bit ahead of his time. And that's what's so frustrating. There's this guy, R. Buckminster Fuller, the Geodome at Disney. That was his design. You know when he designed that? In the 50s. And by the way, it was actually a house trailer that you could drop off in the middle of a desert. It was solar powered completely. It had air conditioning and a refrigerator. Most people in this country at the time he drew that up didn't know what air conditioner was. It had a self-cleaning septic system. Could literally be dropped off in the desert, and you could live there by yourself. He did that in the 30s. He also had a patent on a car that held up to 9 people and got 80 miles a gallon. And you know who bought that? Saudi Arabia. Just kidding. I think the top speed was something like 90 miles an hour, too. And that was in the 30s. So hopefully a lot of the stuff that I'm reading about now won't take that long to come out. But when I'm looking at what's going on, it's amazing. I hate to open my mouth because as soon as I do, that technology is going to get jinxed and will not be adopted anytime really soon. But it's there. In fact, I used to like to point out the fact that every major problem, global warming, running out of oil, hunger, every problem the earth has minimally 5 viable solutions. 5 viable for every problem. You could clothe, feed, cause the waters to recede, cause the ice caps to begin refreezing. You can fix everything. The solutions are already there, I promise you. And it's very frustrating knowing all this and watching it not happening. That's frustrating. The speed is starting to pick up a little bit. Not a lot, but it is starting to pick up a little bit. And that's very encouraging, especially when I see the low valuations on most stocks, smaller company stocks. They're still pretty cheap. There are a ton of them out there that are incredibly inexpensive. Is it going to be change? Yep. Is it going to be fast? I don't know. I hope so. I hope the governments, by the way, it's mostly politics that stands in the way of progress. Politics stand in the way of progress. You got these people who don't want change. They want to just keep things the way they are, even though the ice caps are melting. They don't care. They're talking about New York City being a couple feet underwater. They don't care. Give them boats. Instead of let them eat cake, give them boats. That's the battle cry. By the way, Maria Antoinette got her head chopped off for that. I'm just kidding. She didn't really. But she was only 14 and she was from Austria anyway. You know that? She was set up for that whole thing. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We come back from the commercial break that we're going to have here in a few seconds. And we're going to talk about some individual stocks because this is one of the other things that individual stocks, not many people do anymore. I have a small portion of my money I like to run that way. I think it's fun. It's a hobby. It's very profitable. This is a hobby that can make you money, and you can get good at it. You really can. Is it going to be easy? Probably not for most people. It's not. It's challenging. Some people get it right away. No, I hate those people. I struggled, and I still struggle. Today it's not an intellectual struggle; it's an emotional struggle, and we'll talk about that too. But you can do very well in stocks, and we'll talk about a few different ways of doing that when we come back from these commercial messages. It's Bill Bullington right here on 1420. Stay tuned.
Started growing short and disappearing slowly day after day. I was sitting there waiting in my room for you. You were waiting for me too, and it makes me wonder. The older I get, will I get over it?
.org to apply today.
comfortable? Are you too scared to move and walk out of this tomb? Buried underneath the lies that you believed, safe and sound, stuck in the ground, too lost to be found. You're just asleep, and it's time to leave. Come on and rise up, take a breath, you're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new, the power of death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling?
And we're back. It's actually my favorite song. Yeah. So anyway, we talked about the fixed index annuity. That's something that as you're older, you probably want to get to, especially if you're looking for income. We talked about the investment-only annuity. That's for younger people or older people for that portion of their portfolio that they still need to grow. By the way, you shouldn't have all your money in any one thing. How you break that down really depends on your personality, your financial position. But I think considering both of these is pretty good. And then you've got regular traditional portfolios, stock accounts. Good idea, as far as I'm concerned, for a portion of the money. What percentage? Well, that depends on your age and your tolerance for risk. And we have a really simple method, by the way, of doing it. It's not like most of the companies out there. Ours is, hey, how much of a decline are you willing to sit through, understanding that you're going to have to go through declines if you want to make any money? But what would really keep you up at night? Okay, so if I'm down minus 40%, that would keep me up at night. If I'm down 40%, I'm going, oh, brother, I'm not abandoning. That's my maximum limit. If I get to there, I knew it could happen. So I've got 80% of my money in stocks. That way, if we get another 2008 and 2009 on our hands, I'm going to be down probably about 40%. But I figure I'm young enough and I'll keep working and I'll just wait for it to recover. That's me. If I only had a 15 or 20% decline tolerance because I'm older and I really don't care that much for sitting through something like that, okay. We put 30% of your money, 15% decline, we can put 30% of your money in there. We'll use the fixed index annuities because that's going to give you a much higher guarantee. We can use the product that's got the lower guarantee but gives you the chance for growth. That's great. And you might have a combination. You probably have some of the individual stocks in there too. Awesome. The idea is to get a strategy, that's basically tailored to you. And that's one of the reasons that there is no one size fits all. That kind of stuff drives me a little nuts. When I see that, oh, this is the way everybody should do. No. Everybody's not the same. And actually, if you're married, ask your spouse. You're going to find some major differences in opinion, especially when it comes to money. When it comes to money, that you really need to sit down and just have a conversation. What do you think? And by the way, I've been writing and getting it edited as I go, which I'm not sure how smart that is. Probably end up costing me 10 times more. But the I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. I was thinking I would call it something I'd used before, like a 60-second retirement plan. But it really, to look up the information that you need to look up, is going to take you longer than 60 seconds. Once you look it up, once you know how much you have in pensions, what other sources of income you might have that are from guarantees, like Social Security or pensions, and then you know how much in assets you have, I can tell you what you need to afford, or how much you can afford to spend in retirement, and it doesn't take me 60 seconds. I've been doing this a long time. If you didn't know, I can show you how to figure that out in 60 seconds, but you got to have that other information first. So it's really simple. I feel an example coming on. So let's say you have $500,000 saved up, okay? And you're 65, you're wondering, you're going to be able to collect Social Security here sometime shortly. You're going to get $2,500 a month. Actually, if you're 66, you'll be getting it really shortly. The $2,500 a month is going to be your Social Security, so roughly $30,000. So if you took the 4% using the Financial College for Financial Planning's 4% rule, that means take 4% of $500,000. That's $20,000. You add those two together. Can you afford to live on that? That's your plan. I'm not sure that took 60 seconds. Yeah, but and the first things people say, by the way, is, well, why am I only taking 4%? I've got all this money here. Well, because that's what we're going to start off with. We talked about CDs only paying 0.9%, which means you're going to have to take some risk to generate a return that will allow you to spend 4% a year plus inflation. See, that's the killer, is that we're starting off kind of low because inflation's still there, and you're going to have to increase that over time. So 4% is the starting point, not the ending point. You're going to have to increase that. With interest rates as low as they are now, I think that's a pretty good way to go. Let's stick to a 4% distribution rate. So somebody at $500,000, 5 times 4 is 20. It's $20,000. If you're getting $24,000 from Social Security, that's $44,000. Can you live on that? If you can't, then you have to think about other options, because, and most of the time people will come to me and say, well, you're the professional, just make me more money. And well, yeah, I'm a professional investment advisor, not a magician. By the way, I get at least 2 or 3 chances each week to make financial planning history by making a relatively small amount of money generate a huge. I'm being given these opportunities by people who've not done this planning, and by the way, it's rough. It's really hard to say, look, you may have to keep working. It's rough to have to say, maybe you cut back on your lifestyle somewhat, because if you go beyond these numbers, there's a pretty high likelihood that you're going to run out of money before you pass away. And the only thing I can think of being worse than being in jail is being out of jail and being broke. That would be worse than being in jail. How are you going to get food? So it's tough. It's really tough. And financial planning is really not all that complicated. I was actually talking to other planners here today. It's funny. I'll get these calls from people every once in a while, and they want to know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. Am I interested in selling my business? And when they hear my approach to financial planning, they're like, wow, that's super simple. Yeah, but you guys aren't doing it, are you? No. I know why you're not doing it. Yeah, why is that? Well, because you're trying to build relationships, and you're going through and asking people a lot of personal questions, like what kind of vacations do you want to take, and how much money do you want to provide for your grandkids' college, and all that stuff. And I'm here to tell you, 19 out of 20 people don't have enough money to not cut back on their lifestyle. So that's why I don't talk about that. Yeah, and I'm glad to talk about it. If you want to, and you have the money to do that, I'm glad to talk about those things. It's just that it's not very common. So if you're one of those people, and by the way, I have a ton of people who are in that top 5%. The 5% of people who are actually able to retire without having to cut back. That's how many people make it. You don't hear that on a whole lot of shows. And I'm telling you, that's the way it is. And it's always been that way. It's been that way when interest rates were, 15%. And I remember when my grandmother had a bunch of money and a money market account. They didn't even know what it was. It was new back in those days. Was paying 18%. She was getting 18% interest on a money market account. It was crazy. And, some people that remember this or people that remember 8 or 10% CDs, which happened about 12 years after that point, they're still waiting, hoping beyond hope that that's going to come back again one day. And you know what? That would solve an awful lot of problems, but it would create more problems than it would solve, because then the government would have to start printing money like crazy, and you could just call us Argentina. 15-20% interest, our inflation rate, just keep printing money up, and that we want to avoid that if at all possible. But anyway, long story short, I forgot, to talk about the stocks. There's a bunch of stocks that are coming. By the way, Goodyear came up on one of the scans. Goodyear's price to sales ratio is 0.21. That's 0.21. Now, I don't know how much debt they have, and I don't know what their sales are doing because I didn't have time to look it up. But I can tell you the price of $16.58 and a price to sales ratio, that's a low valuation. Okay, so it's really low. And that stock was a little bit over $30 in 2017. It's $16.58 now. This is not a good long term because of the business that they're in. It's extremely expensive. The profit margins are relatively low, but I think it makes a lot of sense right now, and it did come up on a momentum scan. So that's kind of cool. If you've got value and the price is moving, that could be a trade or it could be an investment. It could qualify as either one of those. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that on future shows. There's an investment club I keep talking to that we haven't been able to get these guys together because of the pandemic and the 6 feet spacing and all that stuff. But eventually we'll be able to do stuff like that. There's a Children's Place. It's got a very similar looking chart. Stock was $150 in 2018. It's 72 now. It came up on a momentum scan. That's nice. Price to sales ratio 0.24. There's another one, Green Plains. These guys make chemicals for, I believe it's for ethanol and stuff like that. It goes into fuel. And I think that's what it's for. And again, price to sales ratio 0.24. By the way, the average price to sales ratio on the S&P 500 right now is 3. It's 3. If you're at 0.24 and the average is 3, okay, what does that say? Now, if you don't know that means there should be some potential there. Like if you go from 0.24 to 3, you'd be up nearly 15-fold. Do I need to say that again? So, and it's not going to go up 15-fold. At least I don't think it will. Although you never know. No, it won't go that far. But because the profit margins aren't that high in that industry anyway. Actually, I don't think these guys have made much money at all. So I've only got about 60 seconds left here. Abercrombie & Fitch, by the way, 0.28. Average price to sales ratio in that industry is about 1. Came up on a momentum screen. With the economy opening back up, who knows? That might be a good one. And by the way, all these stocks came off of the scans that Mike Seeger runs on the Lookout for the Bull website and publishes every day. He's running these scans. How do I know that? Because I'm the one that wrote them. I'm the one that created them. And we're going to get Mike on the show here a couple weeks from now. We'll talk about some of this stuff. Some of the people that have done this have actually had a really good run over the past couple of years. It's pretty interesting. And it's not that hard. This is trading. It's not investing. Although sometimes, like I said, they can fit into both categories. Now that I hear the music, that means I'm going to have to wait to finish that definition for next week's program. You've been listening to Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon, 1420. You can also find us at the Fish's website, 955thefish.com or bullingtoncapital.com. Have a good week, everybody. Good luck and good investing.
You just caught another edition of the Bullington Capital Report, broadcasting every Saturday at 11 a.m. on AM 1420. The Answer. If you have a question and you'd like to speak to Bill personally, you can call him at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or online at bullingtoncapital.com. That's bullingtoncapital.com.
The preceding program has been paid for by Bullington Capital Management, LLC.